So joining us now, the Deputy Nationals Leader Kevin Hogan for his reaction on this and much more. So if we don't have this COP conference, Kevin, you'd be crying into your Weet-Bix about that, I'm sure.
Yeah, certainly not, Pete. I actually think it's good news. I mean, that was going to be at least $1 billion. There were reports last week it could be $2 billion to host this climate change conference. So the Australian taxpayer, Australian families, Australian businesses, you know, I know that that money can be far better spent on cost of living relief and many other measures rather than host a climate change conference, mate. So I think it's good news.
All right, let's go to this other story that jumped out of the pages of the AFR this morning to me, Kevin. Nationals MPs have accused the government of holding a gun to their heads, essentially, by threatening to strike a deal with the Greens to pass environmental laws. So do you share this view?
Well, Pete, this is not complicated, and only Labor could come up with an idea that they're going to do changes to the EPBC Act to make it easier, and then when you read the legislation and what they're proposing, would actually make it far more difficult to get approvals to get projects up in Australia. So we won't support anything that makes it more difficult to get projects up in this country. It's already very difficult. But if it makes it easier, of course we'll support it. But right now, it's not me saying this, Pete. Every stakeholder I talk to, every person in Australia who's trying to generate wealth for this country, get approval through whether it be federal government and other levels of government, say we are one of the most difficult countries in the world to do this. So right now, the legislation makes it more difficult than it currently is to get approvals up. We won't support that. If they make it easier, we will. It's not complicated.
All right, so you've got Jim Chalmers over in WA at the moment, and he's asking industry groups, he's lobbying them to do the government's work to convince you, in essence, to get on the government's side. We know that industry wants you to get a deal done, the BCA wants you to get a deal done. I mean, are you feeling any extra pressure now to just do this because the ball, it seems, is in your court?
Not at all, because look, we're not going to be bullied by Jim Chalmers, Pete, or Anthony Albanese, but what I would say to Jim Chalmers, open your ears and listen to what those industry groups are saying to you about the legislation that actually makes it more difficult right now to get approvals in this country than it currently does. If this legislation was going to make things easier, of course we'd support it. Right now, those same industry groups are telling us it's going to make it more difficult. So this is not complicated. If this legislation makes it easier for approvals to get streamlined in Australia, we obviously would support that. Right now, it's not. So we will not be bullied by Jim Chalmers, Pete.
Okay. Now, Kevin, if the Nationals are leading the way with the coalition at the moment by making the calls, first of all, on net zero, the next topic of conversation is going to be immigration. Where do you want things to land here when it comes to net migration? What do you want the focus to be here as you make your next call?
Well, look, I'd say that, you know, we have an infrastructure issue in this country. Number one being housing. Housing prices are going through the roof. Rent prices are going through the roof. So, you know, Labor have brought in 1.2 million or bringing in 1.2 million people over 5 years. We don't have the housing for them. We don't have other infrastructure for them. Now, as a regional MP, Pete, I very much understand that we need to keep bring in both unskilled and skilled labour into this country. We have skill shortages in this country, and we have to keep filling that. However, Labor have now, with the housing crisis, made it worse over the last 2 or 3 years with bringing the people in they have. We've got to get the balance right, and we'll be making more announcements on that.
So where do you draw the line? Have you got an initial inclination as to who to cut or where to draw the line this early, Kevin? Because, yeah, you need some and you don't need others, but no one wants to say who.
Yeah, well, look, I can't preempt that, Pete, and you'd respect that. Well, we can't while we're working through this policy that I wouldn't be making announcements right now. But certainly we are very conscious that, you know, we have some real skilled shortages in this country, so we really need to target that and make sure we are still getting the people in this country that we need. So our aged care, you know, and so our hospitals, so all these places are staffed.
And you don't want to offend those from certain countries too, right?
Yeah, well, it's not even so much countries, it's the skills where you're getting, you know, it's the skills that you need or the labourers that you need that is the main focus, not necessarily countries. But, you know, we know what we need and we need to keep bringing those people in. But, Pete, you know, I'm sure you know many people. I have my own children who are struggling to buy houses or struggling to pay their rent. And that is because of the supply of houses, the supply of apartments in this country isn't fast enough.
All right.
We've got so many people
What
coming
about like
in.
toughening?
So it's out of kilter, we've got to fix it.
Do you want toughening, you know, Australian tests or character tests? Would you agree with that?
Well, look, there's certainly certain, we already have that. I mean, there's certain things they need to know about Australia. There's certainly skills they have to get into Australia. I certainly support that. There's, they have to. We want people to come to Australia, who come to Australia, to love Australia. That's always been the history of our immigration. One of the great successes of this country was especially the post-World War II immigration to this country. And people came here and they loved it and they were grateful to be here. And we want that to continue, that attitude.
All right. Good one. Kevin Hogan, good to see you.